I thought it would be another ordinary Saturday. Pancakes, cartoons humming from the living room, me picking up little socks like breadcrumbs of childhood. But then, in the middle of a game meant for hands much younger than mine, my grandson slid something across the rug that changed my week, my season, maybe my whole sense of purpose. It was so small, so simple. And yet, the moment he made his offer, I felt something unlock in me that I didn't realize had been shut tight for years. You won't believe what he asked or how I answered. Before I dive in, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love picturing where you're listening. Front porches in Savannah, kitchen tables in Des Moines, recliners in Phoenix, maybe even a quiet garage in Akron with a radio murmuring in the background. Where are you tonight? My name is Emily. I'm 69 and I live in a little house that seems too big on quiet mornings and just the right size when my grandson Daniel arrives, breathless, with his backpack half-zipped and his shoelaces trailing mischief across the hall. If you were here, you'd notice the warm smell of real butter in the skillet, the scratch of my spatula on the seasoned pan, the low hum of the refrigerator that's older than Daniel's father, and more reliable than any clock. You'd notice the lilac bush outside the window, the way its shadow moves slowly across the kitchen table as the day grows like a sundial I never asked for but still check. Daniel came over after his little league practice, hair damp where his cap had pressed a ring on his forehead. He dropped his glove by the door and gave me the kind of hug that isn't just arms. It's a message. I'm here. You matter. I know the way home. I poured him milk and set down pancakes in a stack that leaned like a sloppy wedding cake. He drizzled syrup with the focus of a surgeon and looked up at me with those eyes that have seen only 9 summers, but somehow carry the light of all of them at once. Grandma, can we play after? He asked between bites. Not just the board game. The other one, the one with the controllers. I laughed because the controllers and I were not on speaking terms. Last time I tried, I pressed so many buttons that the poor on-screen character spun in place like a dog chasing its tail. But I said yes. I always try to say yes to play because saying yes to play is saying yes to everything we forget when we grow up. Curiosity, silliness, the possibility that something good might be just one move away. We cleared the dishes and I wiped the counter, the scent of lemon cleaner lifting into the kitchen like a memory of summer. The living room was summit and a bit cluttered. Board games leaning in a polite avalanche, a basket of baseballs and Nerf darts, and that big friendly rug that feels like a field under bare feet. Daniel tugged my hand. He had set up the game console already, 2 controllers waiting on the rug like invitations. I lowered myself onto the floor with all the grace of a boat easing into a shallow dock. Careful, cautious about the knees, while Daniel flopped down with the confidence of youth. He handed me the controller. It felt slick and light, too many buttons, each one a mystery. He treated me like I wasn't about to fumble it, which is a kind of respect a person feels in her bones. Okay, partner, he said. I'll teach you the jump first, then the roll, then the special move. We'll beat the level. If we can't, we'll just make funny mistakes. I liked the word partner. I liked it so much that it caught in my throat. At my age, you often become the extra chair at the table, the spare coat hook, the designated driver of other people's schedules. Partner felt like a promotion back to the main cast. We started. The game's world unfolded bright and fast. Little platforms, coins, surprises popping out of blocks like party favors. With a thumb that didn't obey me, I tried to jump and my tiny avatar leaped straight into a pit. Daniel didn't sigh or laugh at me. He said, "Nice try. You got the timing right, just not the landing. Want to know a trick?" And then he showed me how to press the buttons with the soft pads of my thumbs instead of the tips. Fewer jabs, more music. We played. I failed cheerfully and spectacularly. He failed once or twice and grinned about it. We celebrated every small victory like it was a parade. A coin found behind a stubborn block, a perfect double jump, a secret door. The sun inched across the rug, and the dust motes in the air turned into confetti drifting through our private carnival. The house made its old house sounds, little creaks, a sigh from the heater, the tick of the hallway clock, all folding into this new bright soundtrack of beeps and tiny triumph. You know the kind of day I mean, the ones where nothing grand happens, and yet everything feels like it might. Where a glass of milk tastes like the first time you ever had milk cold and a laugh feels new. And also like it's been waiting a long time to be used. We paused after a while. Daniel set his controller down and scooted over till our shoulders touched. His hair smelled faintly of grass and kid soap, And I thought about the first time I ever braided his hair wrong when he was little impatient with my clumsy fingers. He looked at me like he does when he's about to ask for a second dessert or confess to something brave. Grandma, he said, serious now? I have an idea. But you have to want to. That last part, that you have to want to, land it somewhere deep. Consent isn't only for big complicated things. It's also for time and attention and how we show up for each other. Maybe especially that. I'm listening, I said. He picked up the controller and turned it in his hands as if it were a coin he could rub warm. You know how I have Saturday league and you have church on Sundays and you do your gardening on Tuesdays? What if we had a day that's just ours? Like Teamy and D-Day. We could do this, hit wiggle the controller, or we could do your game with the white tiles. Or we could build something in the garage, but it has to be both of us. And we do it every week, even if it's just for 1 hour. I looked at him, at the scuffed knee he hadn't noticed yet, at the constellation of freckles over his nose. I thought of all the things I'd been lately. Ride giver, soup maker, appointment keeper. And here he was asking me to be his teammate, not his backup plan. The offer was so simple that I almost missed how big it was. Why now? I asked softly. I didn't want him to feel he had to take care of me. Kids deserve to be kids, not Sherpas of our feelings. He shrugged, eyes flicking down then up. I like it when we're a team. And I want to learn your stuff too. Dad says you were the domino boss. And you always tell me stories about building that birdhouse with Grandpa. Maybe we could make a new one for the backyard if you want to. The birdhouse. I could see it in my head. The one with the peaked roof and the crooked perch. The one that leaned like it was listening. My hands remembered the weight of it even as my fingers had gotten more careful, my grip less certain. I felt a little laugh burst up through my chest, half laughter, half relieved. So I said. I want to more than you know. "'Kay," he said, brightening. "So, will you be my Saturday teammate every week if you want to?" I took a breath and said yes, and the yes felt like a small sunrise in my ribs. He hooped and slapped the rug. "Teamy and D." He offered his palm for a high five. When our hands met, it wasn't just the sting of skin. It was a handshake, a pledge, a little covenant sealed with giggles. We pulled the old domino set from the hall closet. The cardboard box was soft and frayed at the corners like an old paperback. I poured the tiles onto the coffee table, and their clack-clack was a sound I'd been missing without knowing. The dots, pips, really, that's what Grandpa called them, looked like tiny constellations. Daniel traced them with a fingertip, counting aloud. I taught him how to build a layout, how to keep score with pennies, how to feel the grip of a tile in your hand, and trust that sometimes the piece you need is patience. He taught me the rhythm of his game too, how the jump becomes a glide if you exhale, how you can reset without shame, how to laugh first so the mistakes don't have to make the joke. I watched him turn failures into practice without knowing he was teaching me a whole new grammar for being old and lighthearted at the same time. We played dominoes until the sun made an orange stripe across the coffee table like a finish line, then switched back to the console so he could show me one last level, which led to 3 last levels the way dessert does. At one point, a flock of geese flew over the roof with that ragged honk that sounds like a band tuning up, and we both paused, listening. It felt like the world was applauding from somewhere just beyond the ceiling. After we put everything away, Daniel stood in the doorway of the garage and scanned the shelves with a contractor's seriousness. The garage smelled like oil and old grass clippings, like summer and work. On the pegboard, a few tools hung just where they had years ago. Patient and ready, Daniel pointed at a small handsaw, and then at a jar full of finishes that had separated into amber layers like museum glass. "So next Saturday," he said. "Dominoes for warm-up, then wood time. We can draw the plan for the birdhouse. You can be the boss. I'll be the primary assistant." "Co-boss," I corrected. "Teamy and D." He grinned, shook my hand again, this time with solemn ceremony, and I watched him walk down the path to his dad's car, his backpack bumping lightly, the evening catching silver in the edges of everything. When the door closed and the house settled back into its quiet, I sat at the kitchen table, laid a domino in the middle, and ran my fingers over the pips like rosary beads. I had no idea a child's offer could make me feel so cold. Wholly chosen. If you're a grandfather listening to this or a father with grown kids, you might understand. It isn't the scale of the invitation. It's the clean way it lands on the heart, the way it gives you a job that isn't about fixing or fetching. It's about showing up. I made tea and stood in the doorway where the kitchen turns into the hall. The house wore its evening sounds now. A neighbor's mower coughing to a stop. A dog negotiating with a squirrel. A train far off slicing the silence with a low steel whisper. I thought about next Saturday and the one after that, and how promises keep us as much as we keep them. I thought about consent again, how good it felt to be asked, how right it felt to say yes, how both pieces make a bridge you can walk across together. When you raise children, you spend so much time telling them what to do that you forget the honor of being invited. At 69, invitations sound like doorbells I didn't know were connected anymore. And here was Daniel ringing one and standing there with a shy, stubborn smile until I opened the door. I cleaned the pan, set it to dry, and took the birdhouse down from the high shelf, where I keep the things I can't quite part with. The old perch was loose, the paint faded to a color that felt like memory more than red. I pictured new cedar, solid, fragrant, sliding under the saw. I pictured Daniel measuring twice and cutting once, his tongue stuck in concentration, a grandson borrowing an old woman's patience as if it were a tool and not a miracle. This wasn't a dramatic rescue or a grand reconciliation. It was a small, steady promise, the kind that if you add enough of them together, can build a life that holds. So next Saturday we'll start. We'll make our plan. Sharpen a pencil and draw lines that mean something. And maybe you know this already, but it took me a long time to learn. Sometimes the most powerful offer is the one that simply says, I want you there. That's the one that touched my soul. Tell me your city and if you've ever had a small invitation that changed your day. I want to picture the streets you'll walk tomorrow, the kitchen tables where you'll drink your coffee, the backs of the envelopes where you'll sketch your own birdhouses. I'll be here waiting for Saturday, thinking about the sound a domino makes when it lands perfectly in line, how it clicks and then becomes part of a pattern bigger than itself. The week stretched long, full of chores that never quite ended. But every time I rinsed a plate or folded a towel, I caught myself smiling. Saturday was coming. Our first official Team E&D day. It's a funny thing how anticipation works. At my age, most weeks roll into one another like waves that never break. Same routines, same neighbors waving from the mailbox. But this week was different. This week had a pulse. When Saturday finally arrived, Daniel bounded in with the kind of energy that makes doors rattle on their hinges. His backpack looked heavier than usual. Grandma, I brought the notebook, he announced as though carrying treasure. He set it down on the kitchen table and unzipped it with a flourish, pulling out a spiral-bound pad and a pencil with bite marks on the end. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon that morning, the scent clinging to the curtains and making the whole room feel like an invitation. Daniel slid into the chair across from me, his knees knocking the underside of the table. He opened the notebook to a fresh page, drew a big crooked rectangle, and titled it in block letters TMT and B projects. It made me laugh, but not in the way that belittles. No, I laughed because something about it was so earnest, so official, so full of possibility. I pulled my reading glasses down from my hair and leaned close. Well, I said, if we're starting a list, let's make it count. We filled the page. Domino tournaments. Birdhouse, garage cleaning, optional, garden box, secret handshake. Every time Daniel wrote something down, his handwriting spilled wider across the page, as if ideas couldn't be contained by neat lines. He made me add one too. Teach Daniel Grandma's biscuit recipe. His eyes sparkling at that. He was thinking about butter melting in the middle of hot bread. I just knew it. After our list, we tackled the birdhouse plan. We pulled the old one down from its high shelf, brushed away the cobwebs, and set it on the table like a patient awaiting surgery. Its paint had faded to a washed-out coral, the roof peeling at the edges. Daniel circled it, hands on hips, as serious as a foreman. We'll need new wood and better nails. And hey, what if we paint it blue? Birds like blue, right? I told him about Grandpa's insistence that birds didn't care about paint, only safety and seed, but I agreed anyway. Blue it is, I said, and he smiled as if I'd handed him a key to something grand. We spent hours measuring, sketching lines, and even practicing with scrap pieces in the garage. The saw winded when Daniel tried, his hands small but steady. I stood behind him, guiding gently, letting him feel the weight of wood, and the way pressure can split or shape depending on patience. The garage smelled like cedar shavings and dust, the air alive with mows that danced in shafts of afternoon light. I thought of how many years had passed since I'd held a saw like that, and how my hands remembered even as my body felt slower. At one point, Daniel paused, wiped his brow with the back of his hand and said, Grandma, you don't look old when you do this. You look like you're my partner. That sentence, simple, offered without ceremony, went straight to the softest part of me. I swallowed the lump in my throat and squeezed his shoulder. That's because I am your partner. We stopped for lunch. Sandwiches with too much mustard cut into triangles because that's how he likes them. He balanced a pickle spear on his nose to make me laugh and I nearly choked on my tea. It was messy and silly, but I can't remember the last time I laughed so freely. Maybe that's what real partnership feels like. Not shared tasks but shared lightness. After lunch, we moved to the living room for dominoes. This time Daniel surprised me with a twist. Loser has to do the victory dance. He invented it on the spot. A mix of stomps, arm flails, and something like a chicken flap. I lost, of course. But when I did the dance, he clapped so hard the dominoes toppled before the game even ended. And then, without hesitation, he joined in. There we were, grandmother and grandson, stomping and flapping in the middle of the rug like a pair of fools. The house itself seemed to laugh with us. Later, as the sun dipped low and turned the window glass into a golden frame, Daniel packed his notebook away. He paused at the door looking back at me. Next Saturday, same time. Next Saturday, I promised. And here's the part you might not believe. When the door shut behind him, the house didn't feel empty. It felt full, brimming with echoes of laughter, with the faint scratch of pencil on paper, with the smell of sawdust and mustard still hanging in the air. It felt like the start of something alive. I sat at the kitchen table with the old birdhouse in my hands. Its crooked perch no longer looked like a relic of the past. It looked like a reminder of where the future begins. Not with grand gestures, not with miracles or fortunes, but with a child's simple offer. Be my teammate. Share this time. Let's build something together. That night, I placed the birdhouse back on the shelf. But this time I wasn't tucking it away. I was saving its place for the new one that was coming. The one Daniel and I would shape with our hands and our laughter. The one painted blue. The one that would carry our mark into the sky. And maybe, just maybe, it would carry our promise too. That no matter how many Saturdays pass, some partnerships are strong enough to turn ordinary days into the kind of memories that last longer than wood. Longer than paint. Longer than even us.